Well, just because the governor vetoed this House bill doesn't mean it's dead. 7 Republicans sponsored HB 314, and they've got the rest of the session to try and override his veto. The bill, one of the first this session to make it to the governor's desk, revises the Kentucky Communications Network Authority, the KCNA. That's the group tied to the state's Kentucky Wired project. The bill would remove most of the members of the KCNA board and move the project to a different agency, the Commonwealth Office of Technology. The governor, in his veto message, said House Bill 314 prevents him from, quote, carrying out the powers and duties the Kentucky Constitution delegates only to him. The governor would have no representation on the board, and that's already a problem in court. The governor going on to write, Kentucky courts, including the Kentucky Court of Appeals, have struck down the legislature's previous attempts to strip the governor of his appointments to prevent him from carrying out his constitutional duties, with those decisions currently before the Kentucky Supreme Court. Another reason for the governor to question the bill: he says the company involved in a lawsuit with the Kentucky Wired project paid more than $20,000 to lobby for its passage. The governor says the bill will create confusion. Its sponsors say keeping the group the way it is creates confusion. With this WKYT Fact Check, I'm Christine Kennedy.